G'day guys and gal. Warhammer 40k loves its irony more than I love the thought of finding a beautiful wife, settling down in a healthy, highly communicative relationship, and then spending half the year in Byron Bay. The best example is the Emperor conquering the galaxy in order to make everyone atheists and destroy all gods, only to end up being worshipped as a god by the largest religion in the galaxy. But how the hell does that happen, and what does this religion actually entail? Is it comparable to our modern religions, or is it something entirely new? Well, today is the day you find out, buddy. Before we get started, in 2025 you don't want to get licked, especially online, so I partnered up with the legendary Surfshark VPN to keep you unlicked in the cyberspace as well as unlocking your internet's full potential. A VPN is fantastic as it allows you to hide your identity while accessing the internet of other countries. As a current case study, Pornhub just ended its services in a bunch of US states because of government regulation, so people have been flocking to VPNs to allow them to still access it despite it being banned where they live. Other use cases include access to better streaming service libraries, which is what I mostly use it for since Australia always cops the worst licensing deals ever. Or for those that live in Russia or China, it allows them to bypass aggressive government firewalls and access the rest of the internet. But why choose Surfshark over the rest? Well, Surfshark's UI is extremely easy to use. Just one click and boom, you on. No need to be a hectic hacker or anything. More importantly, they're running an insane deal right now when you use my link below or go to surfshark.com/major, which will get you Surfshark for as little as $1.99 a month, with an additional 4 extra months free. Surfshark has never been so cheap, and a VPN has never been so useful, so this is your time to sign up. Cheers to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the cult of the Emperor, aka the Ecclesiarchy, aka the Adeptus Ministorum, detailing its origins, how it has evolved, if it's good or bad, and why Gilliman seems to tolerate it in the current setting. Let's get into it. The Emperor was a man of logic and science. He knew that the afterlife was real and contained entities that could be considered gods. He also knew that by starving them of worship and recognition, he could weaken them and beat them. Thus he created a strict atheist policy for his Imperium. All churches were destroyed, all religious people converted or killed, and so on. This would end up being one of the justifications for the traitor's cause. The Emperor lied to everyone. Gods were real, but if the gods sucked ass and the only way to get rid of them was to pretend that they didn't exist, I do kind of back the Emperor on this one. Atheism reigned supreme in the galaxy. The imperial truth it was called, with many cultures being illuminated to this way of thinking. Science was mankind's new deity, and we entered into a golden age. However, when Horus turned against the Emperor and revealed the existence of the Chaos Gods, many people were shaken to their core. Countless worshipped these new gods, whilst countless others were like, fuck those gods, and chose to maintain their belief in the Emperor, or at least if they believed he lied, they thought the lie was better than the gods of war, rape, disease, and pranks. However, many others turned to a new religion, the cult of the Emperor, where they believed he upon Terra was the true god of the galaxy. The biggest driving force behind this was a book called the Lectitio Divinitatis, a book actually written by pre-heresy Lorgar proclaiming the Emperor's divinity and why he was a god. Now, as it was written by a Primarch, arguably the second most well-spoken charismatic Primarch after Horus, it was a very nice book and a lot of people resonated with it. After all, if demons were real, it's a lot more comforting thinking angels are as well. Funnily enough, some of the believers in the Emperor were actually able to channel the powers of the warp for good, using their faith as power, such as Euphrates, who got so powerful that she was able to tell the future, bring back imperial heroes from the dead, and even help save the Emperor and the Imperium with her and her people's faith. Not to mention, during the Siege of Terra, the Emperor began performing miracles to help the defenders, so it did get a bit hard to be like, nah bro, he's just a spicy psyker. When the siege ended and the Emperor was turned into a galactic lithium battery whilst Malcador turned into a pile of dust, the Imperium was left without its true rulers. The Primarchs stepped in, and while they maintained the imperial truth, they were so hell-bent on hunting down the traitor legions that they didn't really give a fuck if people started becoming a bunch of Bible humpers or not. One by one, the loyalist Primarchs vanished, and the Imperium was governed by mortal people as opposed to demigods, until eventually all loyalist Primarchs were gone. Now, as a normal person on Terra, you were told and given evidence of the Emperor sitting upon a golden throne, holding the Imperium together through sheer will despite literally being a corpse. You can even make a pilgrimage that takes you pretty close to him. Combined with the existence of an extremely well-written book, and I'd say you have a much more convincing argument for religion than most of our modern day religions. Like, imagine if Jesus was sitting on top of the pyramids of Giza, eternally shooting a massive golden laser beam into the sky. I'd be a fucking Christian for that. Hence, the imperial truth was abandoned in favor of the imperial cult, with non-believers being branded as heretics and hunted down. There was also a repentant loyalist wordbearer Dreadnought who was in loyalist captivity that also helped shape the form of the early imperial cult. But how does this religion actually work? What do you have to do to participate in it? Well, like modern religions, there are numerous acceptable levels of devotion. You can be a moderate, someone who believes in the God Emperor, carries around symbols of devotion, and occasionally prays in private, like Caiaphas Cain, who often found overly religious people distasteful, calling them emperor botherers. However, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the absolute spastics that are so devoted that they have no sense of anything else, like the Sisters Repentia, who are basically naked sisters of battle that charge into war zones with nothing but their faith and big-ass chainswords. As you can see, quite the range. But what do they all have in common? Well, more or less the only thing you need to do to be considered a faithful member of the Imperial cult is believe that the Emperor is a god, and all that think otherwise are fucking heretics. So the issue with having a million worlds in your kingdom is that there are a lot of different interpretations of the Emperor's godhood, and if you were to try force everyone to believe the exact same thing, you'd be dealing with a non-stop galactic civil war because one planet thinks the Emperor is hooked up to the Golden Throne via his balls, whilst another planet thinks the connection cable goes up his ass. So for the sake of functionality, as long as you believe in the biggie's divinity, you are sweet and can worship him in your own way, whether that be the occasional prayer, offers to shrines, pilgrimages to shrine worlds, which are literally entire planets dedicated to worship, or if you whip yourself and then charge a heretic gun line, that also counts. It's actually pretty chill to be honest, and there's nothing wrong with being a moderate, although this will occasionally cause issues with extremists. How about the actual history of the Ecclesiarchy? How did it go from a bunch of emperor worshippers to a unified religion? Well, the issue is that after the heresy, there was a near infinite amount of different cults who worship the emperor in their own way. As I stated, this is fine, but they didn't fall under a unifying body. However, one of these cults was greater than the rest. It was called the Temple of the Savior Emperor. It had the advantage of being based on Terra, hence near the emperor, and its founder was an imperial hero who fought in the Siege of Terra, so most people flocked to this cult as the main religion of the emperor. The newly formed temple began absorbing, converting, or purging the other cults until by M32 it was dominant and was officially called the Ecclesiarchy. Soon after this, it was given a seat at the High Lords of Terra. Now, as an official organization, it began building massive temples and even claimed worlds to be turned into shrine or cardinal worlds. However, the Ecclesiarchy would not be a very good boy on occasion. During the War of the Beast, its leader went insane and declared loyalty to the Orcs, thus was executed and the Ecclesiarchy kicked off the council. During the Age of Apostasy, a dark time in Imperial history where the dickhead George Vandai took control of the Imperium via becoming leader of the Ecclesiarchy and the Adeptus Ministorum, the custodians themselves ended up getting involved since Vandai's poor management of the Imperium was starting to threaten the Emperor himself. However, for every shit Ecclesiarchy moment, there has been a good one, like when the legendary Sebastian Thor took over and led the Ecclesiarchy with honor and piety. Before I now discuss Guilliman's return and how that affected the Ecclesiarchy, let's discuss how the other factions within the Imperium view it. One thing that is a bit confusing is how the Custodes, Space Marines, and the Mechanicus view the Ecclesiarchy and why they never try to stop it despite them not really believing in it. Well, for the Custodes, they just straight up don't give a fuck. Their job is to protect the Emperor. If everyone wants to jerk off to him, then they can do that. Most Space Marines don't view the Emperor as a god, however they're too busy dealing with the many threats to the Imperium to care much about what's going on with people's religions. A notable exception to this are the Black Templars, who very much see the Emperor as a god. The Mechanicus have their own religion, seeing the Emperor as the Omnissiah, the avatar of the machine god, which is tolerated by the Imperium due to the Treaty of Olympus. The Mechanicus just kind of ignore the Ecclesiarchy, and the Ecclesiarchy tells itself that the Mechanicus' religion is the same as theirs, just with different words and more oil. The Sisters of Battle were actually founded by the Ecclesiarchy, more specifically George Vandai. After the Age of Apostasy, the Ecclesiarchy were no longer to have men under arms to try curb their power, hence the Sisters are their main fighting force as they technically aren't men. The point I'm trying to make here is that the Imperium isn't as dogged as it seems. The Ecclesiarchy is not going to pursue the Custodes, Space Marines, or Mechanicus. They are fanatical, but they aren't retarded. I mean, some definitely are, but as a whole they make it work. This does all beg the question though, is the cult of the Emperor an overall net positive or net negative for the Imperium and mankind? Well, to answer this, we can check out Guilliman's response to them when he was resurrected. Initially, Guilliman was completely disgusted. His father's dream of a science-driven galaxy was shattered and replaced with the very thing the Emperor wanted to destroy. Superstition was everywhere, and Guilliman made it very clear he did not approve. However, you can't just click your fingers and declare a religion that has reigned supreme for 10,000 years over. The Ecclesiarchy also started to get nervous about Guilliman telling them to fuck off all the time, which in turn began to stir the rumblings of a potential coup or civil war. Now, some of the High Lords did actually attempt a coup against Guilliman, and it ended horrifically for them. However, funnily enough, the Ecclesiarchy wasn't involved in that plot as far as I'm aware. However, after Guilliman spent some time chatting to an actually reasonable holy man, as well as a one-on-one with the throned emperor, who at that point was very godly, he actually began questioning his own beliefs. Perhaps the emperor was a god, perhaps he wasn't. However, most importantly of all, Guilliman saw that in this horrendous shithole of a galaxy, believing in something was important, and the power of faith actually meant something, especially when the emperor literally intervened to save Guilliman's life and set Nurgle on fire. As such, to show that Guilliman was willing willing to work with the Ecclesiarchy, he even created a new rank within their order called the Militant Apostolic. The main goal behind this was literally just for G-Man to show that he respected the cult of the Emperor and wasn't a heretic. However, it also allowed him to elevate moderate, free-thinking, low-ranking holy men to instantly become high-ranking, with the goal of eventually making the Ecclesiarchy less extreme overall. Honestly, a bit of a 200 IQ move. So based off that, I do believe the Ecclesiarchy is a net positive for the Imperium. The galaxy is so fucked up that faith is one of the only things keeping humanity together. The power of faith can also literally manifest as special powers to defeat demons or Xenos, and to be honest, at this point the Emperor is pretty much a god, so it's not like the cult of the Emperor is a lie or anything. With Gilliman back in charge, it also can be subtly guided to be less extreme and cringe, although one thing I will say about the Ecclesiarchy is that it absolutely does not discriminate based on gender, race, or sexual orientation. All can be burnt at the stake for being a heretic. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where we have a ton of awesome high-res Warhammer 40k artworks, amazing new cosplays, and as always, boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai for as little as $1 a month. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more religious content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.